Hey, Natsu here. Today I'm going to do part 2 of my what if Deku had a leveling system. How I'm going... Basically, I just want to clarify one thing. The way I'm going to do it is for each of the lives that he makes himself. So the first life is as a king in a kingdom. After that, the next one is going to be another episode. Once that life is over, I'm finishing it. Then the next episode is another life, and continuing like that. Sometime I might do 2 or 3 live in one video if they're shorts, but normally it should take about a full video for each lives. Like, he's still alive through all of that, but it's like he gives himself a new name and goes somewhere else where he basically stays there. He basically created a magic that can change the color of his eyes, hair, change his size and stuff like that to make it so that he isn't exactly the same every time he goes somewhere. This is how I'm going to explain that nobody basically recognizes him as someone from like, oh, I saw you last year, you were in that place. So, before getting to his new place, while traveling, he decided to actually use that spell for the first time. He turned his eyes from green to, let's say, grayish, a grayish color. He turned his hair from green to some type of bluish color, kind of between blue and purple, just in the middle of that. He augmented his size by about 2 or 3 centimeters. But just like for his previous life, he's not going to change his appearance over time. He's going to keep it like that and just roll with it until he has to leave. So basically, what he does for his next life is try to just be someone normal. Not a king, not a prince, not a warrior, just have a normal, calm life on a farm. He decided to stop for a bit with reading and stuff like that and just do normal work. Farming, collecting plants, killing animal, taking all of the meat, the skin to make different stuff. Basically, that's what he decided to do in his second life. So when he arrives to that place and actually starts doing it, it's been around a year since the last time since when he left actually his last life. So he is 136. When basically he arrived to the small village where there are farm around, this is basically what he decided to do. He decided to act as, well, a young adult, basically saying that he was human by simply putting his head, no, he decided to say he was an elf. Well, no, and he still goes for half elf since it is what he is, but it won't stay like that always. Basically, the village is all human, and some beastmen and some other things like fairies, orcs, stuff like that. And by beastmen, what I mean is like a mix of human and an animal. So let's say a fox, demi-human, and stuff like that are there. Basically, he asked for work on a farm to basically be able to live and stuff like that to repay the kindness they showed him. Um, so basically, he starts working there. Over the 2 next years, he basically shows that he has a lot of strength and that he can do the job of like 5 workers just by himself, and at some point get enough money to basically buy himself his own farm, place it a bit further, and he started cultivating. He does have some animals, but mostly like just cows, pigs, and I know cows, chickens, and that's basically it. For the plants he grows, it's basically just like well, wheats basically. So he got his farm like 2 years later, so 138 years old. People tells him that even for an elf, he has good genetic. Since, well, not genetic, but he is well made because, well, he didn't seem to age at all. So, yeah, since elves do stay young a long time, but since all of them are elves, they basically just think, okay, yeah, he just aged really slowly. Elves are really good for that, they already know it. So, basically, over time, he works for a good amount of time there. Later, he basically falls in love with a demi-human, which is a demi-human um, fox. Like I said previously, there are basically that's what there is there. Those types of demi-humans. So he falls in love with one of them. She loves him too. They start going out together. They start living together and doing all of the work on the farm. Up until at some point a kingdom decide to attack the village. Well, not attack, but basically come and try to take them to go to war with another nation. Which none of them wants to do it, but that kingdom basically says, or you come join us, or we destroy you because you're kind of in our path at the same time. Which Deku basically gets that, okay, they're not good guys. They're ready to kill innocent villagers just because they don't want to fight. So basically, he goes in front of them and tells them that no man, they won't do what he says. And he won't let him attack this town. For the last 3 years, well, 2 years and something, he lived here and everyone is really nice. He was different and everyone still accepted him. The guard basically sees that he's an elf and, let's say, he's racist. And basically insults him. With a lot of other people behind him basically laughing a bit. With basically the chief of the army basically telling the guy it's not well to do that. You know they live a lot longer than us and have prowess and magic. Which he says, yeah, but what can he do? I'm a warrior and I'm closer to him. He won't beat me. Which Izuku basically tells him, okay then, I want to fight you. Which everyone in town basically knows that Deku is strong and fast, but the guy has a weapon and they're like, you don't want to do this. The warrior accepts. The chief of the group basically tells the entire army to not step in, and basically looks at them and tells them, okay, I'm going to monitor the match. I'm going to let you 3 ways to choose who wins. But before that, I want you to put conditions. Which the guy says, okay, if he's able to beat me, we don't pass through this place, and I give him my sword. Which the chief is basically like, those swords were made specially with special enchantment that make them unbreakable and give them a special elements. You would be ready to bet that simply because you're racist? Which the guy says, it doesn't matter, he's not going to beat me. Then he looks at Deku and says, what do you bet? Which Deku basically says, if you beat me, I will let you do anything you want to this town. But I'm pretty sure you won't get to do that. Everyone in town basically thinks, okay, we have to leave. And he basically looks at everyone and says, you never asked me, but I always knew that you wanted to know how strong I truly was. You're going to be able to see firsthand what happens when you cross my path and try to destroy what I've put hard work in. The man readies his sword, which basically catches fire, and he says to Deku, then get ready. The chief basically tells them 3, 2, 1, fight. The guy tries to attack Deku, and Deku basically just grabs the sword, stopping it in its track. Which the guy then tries to rip it off, out. Then after that doesn't work, he basically tries to kick Deku, which Deku basically under his clothes places iron scales from an iron dragon right there, and the guy basically kicks into a wall of metal and hurt his foot. Deku then asks the chief if it is okay to kill, and he says, yes, it is finishing your opponent. Then he says sorry to the guy and basically just one punch him and basically break his skull, saying that his strength is way too strong to basically just punch someone normally. Which the guy is dead and the chief is basically looking at him and telling him, normally it would be extremely bad that you did this, but since you did challenge him to a duel and that he accepted, it is regarded as a high honor to die against someone stronger than us, and you did it fair and square. He grabs his sword and basically gives it to Deku, telling him, you have earned this sword, and we will not harm this village. Then he tells everyone to basically go around it, and everyone basically goes to Deku, and they're not even afraid of his power because they saw how kind he was. And after hearing that he was sorry that he had to do this because he was too strong, even if he killed someone, they basically saw that he didn't want to do it. It was just to basically protect the entire town. and that even if he didn't fight, everyone in town would basically be killed. So at least doing what he did would have gained time for everyone to leave, which a lot of people had already started to do. So they still find it kind enough, and like I said, they weren't scared because he killed someone, because he literally told them, I'm too strong for you. You're going to die. So, for the next year and a half, which basically puts him finally to 140, since it was like half a year after his 135th birthday that they arrived, the chief warrior comes back to the village. Deku basically is called to meet him, and there is someone else with the chief. Well, a group of people. A king and a queen, as well as a small group of guard that seem to be extremely strong, and finally 2 mages. The chief warrior basically tells Deku that this is the king and queen that from his kingdom, and that basically they were being attacked by a neighboring kingdom that simply wanted their resources. They tell the name, and Deku knows that name. Basically, he had to fight them multiple times because they were dumbasses that only wanted to take everything for themselves. So basically, the chief um, tells him that the king and queen wants to talk to him directly, and they start talking. When the king starts, he basically asks for the name of the person that was able to defeat in one shot one of their warriors, because they trained them a lot to make sure that they were stronger than most. And Izuku basically told the name that he gave himself for this life, which was, let's say, wait, I'm just going to check my notes for a bit, because I know I marked it somewhere. If I can pause it. Okay, so the name was Tarin Godin. Basically, he gave himself that name to basically not be recognized. So, after giving his full name, they basically asked him if he wanted to come and be one of their guards and in their army, basically, or train people or stuff like that. He asked what would be in it for him, which they said that they could protect the entire town, village, and basically he could have practically everything he would want as long as he was training the others, protecting the kingdom, and making sure that if there were invaders, that he was ready to fight them. He thought about it and just said, well, no thank you, which everyone in the village was a bit, weren't really surprised, because he basically told, his fiancée by that point that he would stay with her for as long as he could until they get separated by death or something like that, which after a long time they basically continued knowing that he will outlive every one of them no matter what. So that has meaning for her because that means until she dies, he promised that he will stay with her. And so when the king asks why he doesn't accept, he basically explains that he's put a lot of work in this town. And that being a half-elf, he doesn't he lives longer than practically everyone, and he doesn't want to lose the friendship with his friends right now. Everyone in this town is people that he actually likes to be with, and that since he is going to outlive everyone, he wants to pass as much time as possible with them. Which the king and queen basically said, "Oh, we thought you were just an elf, not a half elf." Which the chief warrior basically said, "Yeah, I thought so too." Which he said, "Well, nobody really asked, so I never corrected it." Which the chief warrior basically said, "Well, yeah, true. Well, so you don't accept our proposition?" Which Deku says, "Well, the only reason I don't accept it is because of the promises I already did. I am still going to say that I would be ready to train your warriors if they come here, but I do want compensations." Which they ask what he would want, and the first thing the queen asks is, "You want protection for the village?" Which basically everyone in the village kind of laugh a bit because they're like, if he would need protection from other people, we wouldn't actually keep him around that much. He has his own farm, yes, but he basically always stays in the village when he's not there. Which they ask what they mean, and he basically explains that, well, his strength is immense, and since he got the sword, basically taking it out, he helped a lot more people here. When there were monsters or stuff attacking, he was killing them and then collecting all of the meat on them to make sure that nothing goes to waste, taking the scales if they had, the fur to make clothes or other things, helping building houses and stuff like that. Then they ask, "So what do you want then?" Which Deku says that what he wants is books. When they ask why books, he says that he is different from most. He doesn't really need that much money because, well, he has multiple types of magic that basically lets him have as much water that he wants for plants. He can basically augment the growth speed of the plants as well as heal people from the town. So they don't need medicine and stuff like that. They don't need to buy that many different types of how do you say? Well, they don't need to try and find a river for anything, since he's basically able to make an infinite source of water from his hand constantly. Basically, he also made a lake basically close to the village where there's so much water in it and there's even fish and stuff. So basically they don't have to worry about water. There's even water coming in from rivers and stuff that goes in the lake. So basically the only thing that is left for him to get would basically be more knowledge. Which they oblige and say, that for as long as they are alive, well, as long as he stays here, they will provide him with new books every time they send new warriors to be trained, which will be about every month or so. And that this is basically going to be the payment, which he accepts. So the king and queen leaves. The chief warrior basically tells him that their one of their blacksmith wanted to make him a second weapon, since basically if fire wasn't his strong suit, one of their blacksmith could make a new sword for him that would be more convenient. Which all he asked is for a ice sword, which he then accepted and said that he would send in with the with one of the regiment the moment that the sword is ready. So the next month, basically, a group of warrior arrives with about 10 to no about 30 to 50 books, which Izuku basically starts training the warriors in hand-to-hand combat, augmenting their strength. Mages come as well, which basically he trains them in using healing. Since healing is one of the rare magic that isn't elemental and that anyone that has magic can use. For those types of magic, basically it ranges from healing to, well, there's only three types of those, but it's healing magic, sealing magic, and the last one was called, wait, fire, water, ice, thunder, light. Where the hell did I wrote this? Why can't I freaking find it? Oh well. Well, there's a third one. For some reason, I'm not able to find it in my notes, but I know there's three types of magic that as long as you have magic in you, you're able to use them. Um, yeah, I'm still looking for it. Don't know why it's not there. Um, but basically those magic are basically called the natural magic, since it's something everyone that has it can do. There's elemental magic that basically you need um the um not potential but the um what the hell, aptitude to use that element, which, like I said, is like 1 to 2 for common. Uncommon goes for 3, 4. Rare goes to 5 and 6. After that, there's 7 and 8, 9 and 10 that are basically like legendaries. And then there's from 11 to anything else that people basically start calling you godlike. And then there's one last type of magic, which is basically kind of personal magic. This is basically the special types of magic that someone can be born with that normally cannot be learned, except by Deku, because if he sees them and knows how it works, he can basically tries to copy it. But yeah, that didn't come in yet, but I'm telling you outright. If he sees someone use a type of magic that is personal magic, he can ask how it works and then recreate the spell by creating it basically, as well as he is able to create new spell as long as he wants to. And the fourth and last and frankly rarest kind of magic is basically called God magic, which is basically used to change the rule of, well, reality itself. Normally, to use that, you don't even need to have an aptitude for it, you just need a lot of people and enough magic. Basically, how those types of spell works is that you need a lot of magic that will be sacrificed, multiple people to basically provide that magic, and most of the time when those types of spell are used, there is a big toll on the user that can range from losing all of your magic to basically dying. And by losing all of your magic, I'm talking like the amount of magic you have right now in your body, then you get it back later. Um, so basically, it goes from just losing all of your magic for now, losing your spells completely without you being able to relearn them, losing the capacity to use magic in itself, um, the cap the problem of basically or dying directly, or basically going straight to when you use the spell, you literally disappear from existence. Like, the less people there is, the worse the effects can be. The more people there is, the less chance you have from dying or something worse happening. But yeah, those spells basically change reality itself. Like, just change a part of a mountain by earth magic is easy, but changing an entire continent with earth magic can be done, but will take a lot of energy. A god magic is basically changing reality itself to the point of changing the rules. Like, changing completely someone in itself, making them lose all of what they were, making them become someone else, changing like life itself or the way life works. That's what happens with god magic, and it's almost impossible to control. Basically, normally when those types of spell are used, there's around 200 or 300 people minimum to do those spells, and at least 10 of them dies easily. At least half of them or lose their magic or literally lose completely their memories and stuff. And then the rest are basically those that are or unaffected or gets faced with problems that are worse than death itself, which you basically don't want. So, yeah. Basically, those mage. Well, I just explained every type of magic. Well, since there's elemental magic, um, natural magic, personal magic, and god magic. The Dragon Slayer magic are called Slayer magic, but they are still considered um, elemental magic, since you need the element to be able to control that magic. But that's basically it. So it is called elemental magic anyway. So, yeah. Every month he basically gets around 30 to 50 books. He trains people for an entire month before they get sent back. Most of the time the training is fighting, and then they help in the farm and stuff like that, or help around town fixing stuff and doing other things like that. Basically, they train normally, and then they train their strength by doing normal work, which they doesn't displease them because, well, they can stop for a while using a sword and all that. So yeah, for about 20 years that's what happened. During those 20 years, he had two kids. No, three kids. Two daughters, one son, with the fox lady. Um, so he basically, well, his son basically works on the farm practically every day. Um, his daughters are younger and mostly are with their mother, or learning to cook, or learning to work on the farm, or reading the books that their father have, since he has a massive library by this point. Basically, they come, the guards basically comes and they say that it's the last shipment they're going to send ever, because by this point they can basically train them themselves. They tell Deku that if they want, they can still send books and stuff, which he says doesn't really matter, since he has enough. And then, since now he won't have to train anyone, he's basically going to be able to go back on the farm and do that job with his sons and daughters. So during the last shipments, something happened, which was a magic caster that tried to use well, I should say this all right now. God magic, like I said, changes reality itself. But you can also use it to basically, well, instead of using magic to make it work, you can use the life of people. Um, yeah, sorry about that. It must have been loud. So like I was saying, if you give the life of people, you can basically use it with less risk to your health and with less magic needed. And one of the mage was basically trying to do that since the start, when he was still in the kingdom. And so in the last not this shipment, but the one previously, while being with Deku, he basically augmented the amount of magic he had by enough to basically make him be able to do it. Basically, try to control that. But it backfired horribly, and all it did was not kill people, but basically change him into a monster that nobody in the capital was, well, in the capital kingdom, whatever, nobody was able to beat it. So they went and asked Deku for help, since they knew he was strong enough to do it. So he accepted, for sure. And so started, well, when he got there, he was able to kill it. But the tragedy arrives here. The village where he made a new life and stuff like that. While he was gone, it was attacked. There were guards there, but they weren't able to do anything because the assailants were too strong. And everyone got killed in the village. Everything got burned. Everything got destroyed. I know it might seem evil or not, or that I seems to not have emotions, but he read all the books, just to say. There's almost no tome of magic, since normally magic spells are on parchments, and he only looks at books for now. So he only got like, in 20 years he got about 40 new spells, and he passed from level 350 since he was age 135 to about level 500 when he is well, when he has 160 years of age. So what happens is basically that only some people survived, and he basically asked them who attacked them, and it was the kingdom that's in the start. Well, when the warriors tried to pass for the first time, basically it was that kingdom that came and killed all of them, since they were basically training warriors, and that kingdom thought that they were going to kill them, or do a full-fledged attack with all of those. So they decided to kill this place and to leave a message. The king and queen said that they were going to send warriors and basically attack them, and Izuku said no. They killed my family, they killed my friends. I'm doing this on my own. Which the chief warrior said, no, even with your powers, you train people well, but you still have a limit. Which Izuku basically looks at him and says, their kingdom is going to be ashes about an hour after I arrived there. So if you have any warriors that are there, or even close to this place, tell them to try and make civilian or leave that town, or to bring the entire force of their military out of the kingdom. Because either way, something is getting destroyed, and I don't care if civilians are there. So on a crystal ball, they basically call everyone that they have there, basically explaining that practically everyone that are in the army basically knows Deku. Basically, they call him the God Trainer because he's a lot stronger than practically anyone. And basically, they say that they killed his family and that he's going to go and destroy them. So if you're close to that place, take the civilians out of there as fast as freaking possible. Use teleportation spells if you need, but do it. So basically they were bringing civilians outside, telling them that something wrong is going to happen, and to make sure to tell everyone except anyone that are in the army, and to say to everyone to not say it to the army. Because they did something bad and they're going to, and someone is going to get their revenge for that. So basically everyone, knowing that that kingdom is basically just trying to fight against anyone they can, basically got the hell out of there. So there were no more civilians. The entire army, king, queen, every one of their descendants, so, every son and daughters, I mean, were still there. When Deku arrived, basically, they came out because, they still heard about it at some point. And they asked him, so you're the reason everyone left. What's so scary about a kid? Which some warriors, the king and queen as well, came. He told them that they didn't, to not attack or fight against them. That he was going to do the full thing himself. Which they said they only wanted to see. Then the other side basically said, attack them. Kill him! Which, when everyone started running towards him, Izuku basically left his hand, put his hand up and said, by the crimson flames and the deepest, by the hottest flames and the crimson red, I give my magic to bring hell, kill my enemies that are standing in front. Then he lowers his hand and places it around in front of him towards them and says, and let my rage consume all. And basically destroy the living shit out of all of them. Basically shooting just to the side enough to miss the king and queen of that kingdom, as well as their kids, but basically reducing the entire kingdom behind them to ashes. Which everyone was basically like, holy shit, what type of magic was that? Like, they knew it was fire magic, but they never heard that spell before. And basically what that spell was basically just an explosion spell dialed to 11. And if you count the amount of magic Izuku has at the same time and that he put in it, he basically just nuked an entire kingdom. He basically looked at them after doing that and lifted his hand again. They were sure he was going to do the same spell, but instead they started hearing, by the wrath of the dragons and by the wrath of the gods, I give my wrath and love to this spell. I send my emotion towards them. Everyone started freaking out because basically they just see a massive ball of fire that is a crimson red just starting to form over him, and that keeps getting bigger and bigger. When he opened his eyes, he basically finished the spell by saying, "For all that dared to destroy my family, this is my revenge." And then the name of the spell. He basically just moves his hand a little bit and says, "Crimson Rage," which basically just grows, engulfs the entire rest of the army, the king, queen, their children, and anything behind them for about a kilometer. The explosion was about 100 meters in diameter, well, in length, not length, but in, well, yeah, basically it was a freaking massive, fire tunnel, well, not tunnel, but, basically it just had a diameter of like 100 meters, and it continued for around a kilometer behind them, basically destroying the entire kingdom for good. When the king and queen of the kingdom that he helped a lot saw what he did, they basically asked for the first time, "What are you?" Which Deku turned around and basically just said, "Someone that tried to hold in his emotions, but this point was too much." The two spells I used actually consumes the rage of the user. So the more rage you have, the more powerful they are. If you are angry enough, it could probably be classed as a god tier spell, which they basically says, "So you were keeping all of your anger in for so long, and that's what happened after that?" Which he says that, well, he basically looks at them and says, "My age is 160 years old. They attacked my kingdom multiple times while I was a king. I decided to leave it to my descendants. Well, I decided to leave my kingdom to my descendants. And and I don't want them to attack them." Which he says, "So you had other kids?" Well, the chief warrior asked him that, and he says that he is a half elf that doesn't even seem to age at all. Then he stopped his transformation magic that basically makes him look like different. Change his eye color, size, hair color, stuff like that. And basically says, "I am King Izuku Midoriya. I left my kingdom to so that my kids could actually control it." They, pointing to where the kingdom was, attacked my kingdom a lot during my time of reign. I had a lot of rage already built up. So after they killed my wife and 3 of my children, I had to do something. All of that rage was used into single attack. And you saw what happened. Which they basically says, "So, how many times did you use those spells?" And he basically says that He created them while coming here, which they ask, created? You are one of the rare people with the skill to make new spells? Which he says yes. And they say, that explains a lot. That also explains your strength. You helped our kingdom a lot, so if you have any request, we will do it. Which he basically just says, what I want to do is make a new life. And forget about this one. I will always remember everything that happened. But I'm going to go for a new and try to be better. And so he leaves, which basically they get because, well, the family he just had, that he worked for, that he basically did everything he could to make sure that they were still going to live, were killed. And the only way that he had even, that he would even be able to actually stop the senseless killing from those that killed them was to literally kill them before they continue. So yeah, Izuku left at 160 years of age, which is 160 years after being reborn. So basically, in his old world, a day and something have passed already. Like, I think 1 day and 14 hours, something like that. 14 or 15, something in those range. And so the final verdict is that his level is 500. He knows 340 spells. No, 390 spells. His power is keep increasing, because you don't need to level up in that world to basically get stronger or increase your stats, as well as he doesn't need to do that, since he just has to do the quest that he gets every day to basically be able to increase his stats or skills, magic, and whatever else he wants. And basically every day for the last 60 years he started doing all of them. So 3 quests that each of them give him a certain amount of money, so he wouldn't actually need to even have a farm, but he wanted to have one. And when you complete all 3 quests, you get about 3 points to boost your skills, stats, or whatever you want. So he had a lot. So yeah, this was part 2 of my what if deku had a leveling system. Hope you liked it, and if you have any suggestion for what if or anything, leave them in the comments. I really want to see what you have in mind. Natsu out.